Hello, everybody. This is going to be your homework for tonight. It's going to be due on Tuesday's class. We just spent the past, well, today going over the New Deal and how the goal of the New Deal and how that supposedly tried to get us out of the Great Depression. Some of the things that FDR tried to do to help alleviate some of the stress, concerns, and poverty issues that was running rampant throughout the United States in the 30s. So that did not go without controversy. So I'm going to talk about that today, and it's going to be your learning goal for today. Is some of the make sure you're copying this down in your guided notes. I will check the guided notes for completion on Tuesday. So ultimately, guys, the New Deal was not a how can I put this? It was extremely controversial. Because as we talked about, the New Deal is going to expand the federal government, make the president more powerful, make the federal government more powerful. And that was something, if you even stem back from, the early days of our government, our early government, and how, people were concerned about a president having extreme power and the federal government having, a lot of power compared to the states. So by 1935, there was some political disunity, some arguing that was beginning to go on. Some politicians and members of Congress were scared and nervous that the president was kind of overstepping his constitutional duties, and President FDR, President Roosevelt, is going to have critics on really on both sides, from the left and from the right. He'll have critics within his own political party. That are going to criticize him and really question, his ability to create something as ambitious as what he's trying to do. So we'll talk about that today and some of that controversy and whatnot. All right, so there was criticisms of the New Deal. So his conservative opponent. So then FDR was a Democrat, meaning he was to the left of the spectrum. Conservatives are to the right of the spectrum. So these are criticisms that a lot of people on the right really had with FDR and his New Deal. He believed that conservatives, or Republicans, members to the right, believe that the New Deal went way too far. Here, I'm going to hear some different bullet points here for you guys to kind of some talking points. But ultimately, they believe that the New Deal was socialism. If you think about what America represents individualism, capitalism, that you have the ability to rise from nothing and to make something out of yourself. Like think of Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller. They were men that came from literally nothing, from poverty, very humble beginnings. Carnegie was an immigrant, and how they rose to the top. You hear stories like that all the time. That's what America represents. That it's you use your skills, you use your intelligence, you use your work ethic to rise to the top in your ambitions. So many people believe the New Deal will kill that individualistic idea and move towards government control and provide for all and that kind of thing. They also were worried about the amount of money that was being spent. The New Deal was not cheap, guys. You're creating hundreds of programs, creating all these jobs and whatnot. The national debt rose to $35 billion. So people were really worried about government spending and how much we were spending to spark the economy. Third thing, it wasted money on relief and encouraged idleness. So what do I mean by encourage idleness? What that means is that if you were why work? If the government is going to pay you money to sit at home and to be unemployed, what's the point of working then? The whole point of the New Deal was to get people back to work. But is this really going to be something that's going to encourage people to work, or is it going to encourage people to take advantage of the system? So this is something that again really scared a lot of conservatives to the right. That's going to encourage communism and a lack of a work ethic and just kind of be idle and let the government take care of all your problems. Other people believe that this violated the Constitution. The president didn't have the power to create something this ambitious and strong. And then the last thing, as I already mentioned before, it increased the power of the presidency. Many people believe that FDR was reaching towards a dictatorship. Congress are rubber stamp, and independence of judiciary threatened separation of thresholds. So ultimately, that many people feel Congress was just going to stamp whatever FDR wanted. And they really became be vocal and outspoken against this and FDR and his plans, and really scared a lot of people. All right, so this is not in your guys' notes, but one of the outspoken critics was a senator named Huey Long. He said that the New Deal relief measures were mere crumbs, and advocated a share the wealth. So this is kind of more of a communistic idea. He believed that the New Deal wasn't far enough, that FDR needed to go further to help America, that needed to share a lot of the wealth, and essentially, guys, this was kind of a very communistic idea. So he wanted to guarantee every citizen get $5,000 for every American, and confiscate some of the wealth from the wealthy. So this is, again, a very extreme viewpoint. Now, obviously, FDR isn't going to go quite this far, but he did have Huey Long was a very influential person that did, that had some followers that believed that the U.S. government needed to provide more relief for people. So this is one idea, Huey Long. And then you had Father Charles E. Coughlin. He was a priest from the Detroit area, and he had his own broadcast on the radio called the Golden Hour. He claimed that there was an international bankers conspiracy and the Jews were responsible for this conspiracy. He advocated nationalization of banking and currency and national resources and demanded a living wage for Americans. So you had these two different viewpoints that had some followers that FDR had to address. And you'll see that right here with some of the laws that he's going to get passed that's going to address some of these concerns, such as another critic, Dr. Francis E. Townsend, was an elderly physician from California. He had a plan for the federal government to pay $200 per month to unemployed people over the age of 60. Think about this, it might sound very familiar to what we have now, to provide elderly with an income. So I'll talk about that more in a minute. All right, so FDR is going to take some of these. Again, there were criticisms and there were followers that these three people have. So look what he's going to do. He's going to sponsor more moderate laws, moderate legislation, to kind of silence the opposition, to get more people on his side. So look at the Revenue Act. He's going to pass the Revenue Act of 1935. This is a response to Huey Long. He's going to increase taxes on large incomes, on large corporations, provide more income for the federal government to help pay for these programs. Okay, so that's a check mark, get some followers on your side. You're going to pass the Banking Act of 1935. This is a response to Coughlin. He's going to extend the federal control over private banking practices to make banks more accountable and more safe. We'll trust them. So boom, check mark. You bring in some of Coughlin's supporters on your side. And then finally you have the Social Security Act of 1935, which Social Security, we have that now for elderly people. But this is a response to Townsend that will provide money for people who are unemployed and dependent children, for people that are disabled and blind, unemployment insurance, to help people who are elderly or who have a disability, provide them a monthly income. So boom, you take his supporters and bring them on your side. That's less opposition now to you. All right, so protection of the New Deal. So FDR is going to take some steps to protect his New Deal. Again, the New Deal was his baby. He believed that the federal government needed to do something to get us out of this economic awfulness that struck our country for the past several years. But both of these protections are going to fail. So one of the things he tried to do was something called court packing plan. He proposed to increase the Supreme Court from 9 members to 15 members. This should sound very familiar to you guys. This was something that was kind of talked about recently before the election. The Democrats wanted to stop one of President Trump's Supreme Court nominees, so they threatened the idea of Supreme Court packing. Now, this did not work, and it's actually backfired on FDR. This scared some of the members of his own party as he's kind of overreaching and just kind of throwing away his power a little bit, and this will end up backfiring him a little bit, causing a revolt in his own party, and then became a purge of the Democratic Party. Again, FDR was a Democrat, so the purge of the Democratic Party in the election of 1938 came out strongly in favor of liberal Democrats. That there was evidence that there was interfering in state campaigns. So again, very similar to what we're talking about now with the election. People are, pointing fingers at conspiracies and interfering in elections, etc. So because of this fear, Republicans are going to gain more strength in the House. So now you have, you have FDR, the Democrat, and then you have Republicans who are going to gain more support in Congress. It's going to lead to some, more checks and balances. FDR is going to have some more checks on him. He won't have complete authority and complete power now to do some of the things he wants to do. All right, so there's going to be decline of New Deal reform in 1937 or after 1937. Here's some reasons. Because, as I said, the court packing idea FDR had is going to backfire on him. He's going to lead to more opponents of FDR. It'll make Congress more irritable and not trust FDR quite as much. So it's going to be harder for FDR to pass some of these New Deal ideas and programs because Congress and him are going to kind of start butting heads a little bit. There was a slight recession in 1937 and 38 that's going to weaken people's confidence in the New Deal. Like, is the New Deal really working? Is it, something that we really need to keep doing, spending all this money? And it also leads to that Republicans gain more power in Congress. So it's going to be, again, as I said, harder for FDR to complete some of his ideas. You can just read through this. There became much more of an increased focus on foreign affairs as Hitler is starting to come to power and World War II is on the verge. So Congress became more preoccupied with that. FDR became more preoccupied with that than the New Deal. All right. So what's the importance of the New Deal? So physical rehabilitation of the country, some things that we talked about. It's going to attack some of the problems that we have, soil erosion. So they're going to create jobs to fix that problem. They're going to create jobs to hire people to build dams and plant trees to prevent floods to help some of the farmers in cities that are prone to flooding. They're going to reclaim the grasslands of the Great Plains by hiring workers to work those fields. Developing water power resources, again, creating jobs for that. So part of the New Deal, guys, a big part of it was creating jobs for people, building up our infrastructure projects, so dams and irrigation, etc. Human rehabilitation. It's going to establish the principle that the government is responsible for the health, welfare, and security of its citizens. So the government's going to take a much more active role in protecting the citizens from poverty and health, looking out for their welfare and education and protection. So some of these ideas are like embracing Social Security, as FDR did with the New Deal, public health and housing initiatives are going to be sponsored and addressed going forward. It will enter the domain of agriculture and labor for the first time. So there's some ideas there. Again, the idea to help people make their lives better. And then there's the politics, the revitalization of politics. So as you see with the New Deal, it's going to strengthen the executive branch, the power of the president, reassert presidential leadership and power under the New Deal, which will be, again, depending on your view, good or bad, but it'll be very controversial. That's still talked about today amongst Democrats and Republicans. And it'll revitalize political party as a vehicle for the popular will and as an instrument for executive action. So the power of the political parties. We see that today. And a lot of that's really going to stem from the New Deal. And then finally, the maintenance of the democratic system. The New Deal is going to maintain a democratic system of government and society in a world threatened by totalitarian. So in Europe, you have totalitarian governments. You have Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Hirohito, and we're going to reassert our democratic role in that. It's going to, as I said, if anything else, you need to understand this. The New Deal is going to increase the size of the government. It's very, very important for you to understand that. Increase the size big time. But again, as I said, it will also lead to some infighting. Democrats, Republicans are going to fight over a lot of these ideas. That they, how far is too much? What is the government's role? How much money should they be spending? These are the same things we're talking about today. All right, so that is it for today. We'll talk about some of this tomorrow, but yeah, that's your lecture. Good luck.